First off, hope everyone had a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Even with the Corona and everything this year, the COVID. So, this will be the final part about the old Volvo Buster 400 tractor. Some more cleaning with all the dirt up here. Something has been leaking. Also found where the steering gearbox has been leaking. The axle out here seems to be dripping now that it has oil in it. Also a small leak near one of the injectors. Placed some paper after cleaning to be able to confirm leaks and that they are where I think they are, and yes, I've confirmed some more leaks. Here on the steering, the arm needs to be removed, the lock pin and nut, made some markings to be able to put back the arm. He had arranged with a puller to get it off, because that's what the manual says, but it came out really easily, so it would probably have been possible to maybe yank it off by hand, but I thought it would be on there a lot more. And for being like 50 years old, as I think this seal is, it's in really good condition, but wanted to replace it because I think the main reason it's leaking is the dirt has been able to accumulate under there. Drilled a little hole, could not get a screw to fit, but one of those dentist torture tools with a hook could be hooked under there and pull the seal out.
It
wasn't leaking a whole lot even with seal removed. Put a little plastic container under there, but hardly anything ended up in there. So I had to go get a seal before I could continue. So it's on the return line on the injector, and it seems to leak here from the top, and just a couple of new copper washers and seems to have cured that minor leak. So that was easy at least. Had tried tightening it earlier because I suspected it leaking, but that hadn't helped. A couple of days later and everything still seems dry. I've received some new traps for the bark beetles that are killing or eating my spruce, so we'll try to get them out earlier. I missed recording when unbolting the hydraulic pump from it, and since it was already off the machine, I pressurized it with some compressed air and some soapy water to see if I got any bubbles, if the pump itself is leaking, but it could be engine oil that's leaking out here, because there is no gasket on this face here, or this place for some reason. I'm not sure if it should be, and someone has been in here in the past and not done anything about it. Just added a little liquid gasket after cleaning up everything, and then it was just a matter of getting it back in place. The pipe was giving me issues, so a little luggage strap and pulling that out of the way, but I ended up not being able to hook up the arm that can disengage or engage the pump, so I had to bring it back out again. Angle was a little bad. The arm assisted at the very bottom here, so but on the second attempt I at least was able to get it to engage the way it should. Tightened the 3 bolts holding pump up, and then the banjo fitting up here. Couple of new O-rings, because it calls for O-rings on these banjo fittings. Could have been up here on the banjo fitting, but maybe that was the place that it was actually leaking, but it was kind of running down the backside, and had the banjo been leaking I thought I would have seen something coming out up here near the green connection also. Hooked up the arm that goes into the cab to engage the pump from inside the cab. You can jump ahead a couple of minutes if you're not interested in other small fixes, because I will bring the Buster out into the snow in the end of the video in like 2-3 minutes. Had an old hydraulic wood splitter that the rubber protection on the lever had been broken, so water would get down here and things would freeze up and jam. So and the lever has been broken in the past also. Some special solutions has been made in the past, but could get hold of a new rubber sealed rubber protection here and just fitted that. Had to struggle to get the lever back into place with it being kind of tight fitting and only being possible to put it on there one way, or else it wouldn't seat properly. This one has not seen a lot of love. We drained. The hydraulic oil looked really good. It doesn't have a whole lot of hours on it or much used, but it's been many years. No signs of any water in the hydraulic oil, or no water coming out, and it was a little low on hydraulic, so that was topped up. Had an old fan in the garage to help circulate the air in there, and the bearings were going bad. Sadly, I damaged some of the aluminum casting when changing the bearings on it, but it spins again, so it will spin some longer during the winter to help circulate the air in there. Need a little help to get going, but once started it seems to spin just fine. Now back to the old tractor, the Buster. Wanted to go over every grease fitting, grease nipple that's on there. First one I tried, it just spewed the grease back out, so that was replaced. The rest of them seem to work. I haven't covered all of them. There are quite a lot of them, especially on the front end here and inside the cab. And under the machine there is a bunch of them for the different pedals, the pivot points on them. On this one, yeah, and I ran out of power just as I was gonna do the rear wheel, so. But after a new battery, it was back up and running. Here the thrust bearing for the clutch is deep in a hole here. That's kind of good, because you should give this very little grease. Not very often, but it's probably been at least 10, maybe more years since it got any grease. So, but it was a little tricky getting up there. Had to get a screwdriver and push it in place. Secure the wiring for the new temperature gauge, the power steering on it that has been added later and is a separate system. Was a little low on oil. I haven't replaced that oil for now. And this time around I had rigged up the front loader with 2 chain blocks to be able to adjust it, and then it just landed super easily. But I had run out of power in the camera, so I couldn't show the smooth landing we had. Hooked up the hydraulic hoses when it was warmed up, greased it's only 2 points on the loader that has had grease nipples added to them. It didn't have any to start with. And my dad is happy to get it out and sounds happy. And while he was goofing around with it before we put the chains back on it, he was able to get it stuck. Luckily it wasn't that bad, and we could get it out of the snow without too much trouble. Then the chains could go back on. They sit there all year around many times, so, and they are in poor conditions and have some pieces hanging off them, but a piece of metal wire to make kind of a loop to hook them onto the tire and help pull them around, and it's just a matter of tightening them up and getting things into place. So we'll need to keep track of the engine oil should that leak around the hydraulic pump have been hydraulic oil. It will now feed that into the engine when I've sealed up that mounting surface, so I might see an increase in engine oil, and if so the pump would probably get new seals, and it was packed in under a roof for now before it goes on new adventures.